I got to tell you about a very disturbing bill that was recently proposed in Tennessee, not because of the bill itself, but because of an amendment to the bill. And it was sponsored by this guy right here. His name is Jody Barrett. He is a state representative in Tennessee. And basically, what he wants to do is change the law in order to allow the state to murder women if they have abortions because he's a Republican. I will tell you, spoiler alert, his effort to do that now appears to be dead. It's not going to happen, which is great, but it's so disturbing what he's trying to do that I think it's worth going into how he tried to pull this off. The basic story of this is that there was a bill up for consideration, House Bill 570, and it involves a memorial outside the Tennessee state capitol. I guess in 2018, Tennessee Republicans passed a bill that would install a memorial for unborn children outside the state capitol, because that is what's going to fix all of Tennessee's problems. Tennessee ranks near the bottom when it comes to healthcare. They are at the very bottom when it comes to maternal death, but they wanted a memorial for like fetuses. And that was in 2018. Well, they only got around to unveiling the monument now. Like, it's not going to be unveiled until this summer. And because lawmakers like just now figured out how to pay for it or something. And what this bill, HB 570, would do is it would require the state capitol commission to take care of the monument once it's up. It's a pretty non-controversial bill. Like, just, hey, your job is to take care of the Capitol grounds. Well, that includes the monument now too. Whatever, fine. But what Jody Barrett just did is he introduced an amendment to that bill that would totally change what that bill would do. So this is an amendment to House Bill 570. And I'm not going to read all this because it's a lot of anti-abortion propaganda and a lot of legalese. But he basically talks about fetuses and God, and there's a lot of whereas clauses there. But the bottom line is this bill would say we can punish anybody involved with an abortion using penalties that go all the way up to the death penalty. Here's what the Tennesseans said about the bill, because they did it in regular English. An amendment drafted for House Bill 570 that's not yet been voted on would allow prosecutors to charge women who obtain abortions with fetal homicide, punishable by life imprisonment, life without parole, or in some cases, the death penalty. So they would treat abortion the way normal states treat murder, which is why it's eligible for the death penalty. This bill specifically removes legal protections for pregnant women currently in statute and classifies harm done to an unborn child as equal to assault on a person born alive. Now, it would not apply to a spontaneous miscarriage or to unintentional death of an unborn child after undertaking life-saving procedures to save the life of the mother and to save the life of the unborn child. But that's it. No other exemptions. This is their little, we're not trying to murder all women. Look at this. Retroactive prosecutions of women who were involved in the assault of her unborn child or involved in the homicide of her own unborn child before the bill goes into effect would not be allowed. So they're not going to go back in time and try to murder women who already had an abortion. They would only try to murder women starting now. So that's how this bill was going to work. Yikes. It's so disturbing because you think these Republicans would know how to tell the difference between a spontaneous abortion and one that was planned? And do you think this is going to stop abortions? No, abortions are going to happen. If you need to know how to get one, just ask your pastor's daughter. Like, they're going to happen. They'll just go underground. They will be harder to get. And the thing is, this bill would not just apply to the women getting the abortion. It would apply to people who help them acquire one and to the doctors who perform the procedure. In a state, by the way, where doctors are already punished and face, I believe, up to 15 years in prison for helping women have an abortion. So guess who's celebrating this bill? The leader of the Southern Baptist Convention, the largest Protestant denomination in the country, Clint Presley. Here's what he said. I'm glad to support House Bill 570 and its companion bill in the Senate, 738. Two bills in the Tennessee legislature that would protect every preborn child in Tennessee from abortion by providing preborn children with equal protection of the laws. Blah, blah, blah. Tennessee now has the opportunity to set an example of how states can protect the sanctity of human life from conception to natural death. I am urging the Tennessee legislature to move these bills forward this legislative session. It's both pro-life and consistent. It's pro-life to execute women who don't want to give birth to their rapist babies. That's the Southern Baptist Convention's leader for you. As if this guy has any clue why women might want to end a pregnancy on their own terms. Like, there's no room for nuance in his worldview. Like, that amendment is not about loving our neighbors in the womb. It's always easy for pastors to say that because the unborn have no opinions, no needs. They're phantoms. You could project anything you want onto them. If any of those fetuses grows up to want any sort of autonomy, then you might need to be murdered. That's how Jesus would do it. There was a time, you may remember this if you are old like me. There was a time when anti-abortion activists were like, you guys, we can't go after the women. That's a bad look for us. Let's focus on going after the doctors, right? Like, do you remember when Trump was running for president in like 2015 and he did that interview with Chris Matthews, and Chris Matthews is like, do you think women should be punished for having an abortion? And Trump was like, yeah, I think there should be some sort of punishment. And the right freaked out because he didn't know that he's not supposed to say that. Trump just assumed you're supposed to say that because, yeah, the Republicans love hating women. Like, so he just said it. But the thing is, he said something you weren't supposed to say because you don't go after the women having abortions. You show compassion to women having abortions. That's the pro-life way. And now they are so done with that. Now they're like, who cares? If a woman has to get murdered, we're pro-life, so we'll do it. Oh my God, these people refuse to acknowledge that there are sensible reasons for women to have abortions, and it's none of their business what those reasons are, but they just spread this myth that every abortion must be some form of birth control for harlots, and that's it. And so we got to protect the fetuses. And the only defense that Jody Barrett offered, because a reporter called them up and they're like, you want to murder women? That's not great, is it? And here's what Jody Barrett said to the reporter. When I asked Barrett about it, he acknowledged the death penalty could apply, but downplayed the possibility, calling it highly unlikely. A simple examination of the death penalty in Tennessee would show that that's just not realistic. Now, do I have to admit that the death penalty is a possibility? Sure. But since the death penalty was reinstated in Tennessee in 1977, there's been less than 200 people sentenced to death, and only 16 have actually been executed, none of them women. See? This guy, Jody Barrett, he just wants to make it more likely that women could end up on death row. But it's probably not going to happen, so calm down. Oh my God, no one in this man's life has any ability to tell him, like, just shut up. You're not helping your case at all. There was one more crazy group, what's it called? Foundation to Abolish Abortion. And this is what they said. Under this legislation, murdering anyone would be made illegal for everyone, ensuring that all humans made in the image of God are equally protected in accordance with the Tennessee Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, and the law of God. Murdering anyone would be made illegal, so we're instituting the death penalty for women who have abortions. Yikes. I will say, if you want a sensible quotation, this is what Planned Parenthood said in Tennessee. This bill is an egregious affront to the bodily autonomy, health, and rights of pregnant people and does nothing to address the maternal and infant mortality crises Tennessee is currently facing. It's clear this bill is about control, because if legislators truly upheld the value of sanctity of life, then they would be proposing legislation to ensure that pregnant people and babies can access the health care they need when they need it, which is absolutely on point. If you want to make it more likely that people go through with a pregnancy, make it easier for them to do so. Give them free health care. Make sure those babies are fed and healthy, and they're not doing any of that shit. One other person who supported this bill is Monty Fritz, who is a Republican candidate for governor of Tennessee. He signed on to the bill as a co-sponsor, and he said he totally supports imposing the death penalty on women who have abortions. So, yay, Republicans. Anyway, if you want any silver lining to any of this, it's that this bill this amendment, I should say, appears to be dead. And this is a headline from just this week. Tennessee Republican won't run anti-abortion bill. And this is Mark Pody. He is a Republican senator from Tennessee. But this is what he said. He said he can't run the measure because of the amendment tacked onto it by Jody Barrett, which would penalize women who have abortions, including those who go out of state for treatment of dangerous pregnancies. I appreciate that Jody Barrett is very, very passionate about this issue, but it's very easy to see I don't have the votes in the Senate, so there's no sense in running it. Barrett said Tuesday he's not trying to have women sentenced to death. Why are you guys saying that? Even though his bill would treat the unborn the same as the born, calling that the equal protection portion of the bill. It's not singling out women. It's saying that anybody that kills a child in the womb would be subject to criminal penalty, Barrett said, which would single out women and potentially give them the death penalty. Anyway, I just want to point out, Mark Pody said he's not going to even support this bill, his bill, in the Senate because he doesn't have the votes. Not because it's the wrong thing to do, not because he opposes executing women for trying to get health care, just because he's like, damn it, I don't have enough support. I'm going to find a couple more Republicans, and as soon as I figure out which ones like to murder women, we're back on, baby. Nope, that's his argument. So he's not exactly the good guy here, but he's like, oh, I don't think that's going to play well that Republicans want to murder women, so I'm not going to push this bill in the Senate. Anyway, all of this is happening in a state that already prosecutes doctors who help with abortions. It's already a felony to help someone travel to another state to have the procedure done. It's already a crime for companies to fulfill mail orders for abortion pills. And guess what? Abortions haven't stopped in Tennessee. This legislation, even if this amendment passed, it wouldn't stop abortions. It's just going to drive the practice further underground. It'll lead to more unsafe abortions. Right-wing extremists would rather see women suffer than allow them to control their own bodies. And they do not give a shit if the woman isn't ready to have a baby, if she's a child herself, if she's pregnant due to sexual assault or incest. There is no room for that kind of compassion or thoughtfulness if you are a Republican right now. So all we learned from the introduction and withdrawal of this amendment is that Tennessee Republicans are not satisfied with just banning abortion, which they have already done. They want to terrorize women into submission. The fact that this amendment was seriously considered as a legitimate policy proposal rather than just outright condemned by everybody shows you how far these extremists have come in making their views appear to be mainstream. So as Planned Parenthood said, if Republicans cared about life, they would invest in prenatal care and expanding Medicaid and funding rural hospitals and ensuring safe pregnancies. But Republicans have rejected all of those things. The Republican Party, in that one big, beautiful bill, took money away from rural hospitals so fewer people can receive any sort of care. They never push for changes to actually help people. And now they're just proposing death sentences against people who don't want to go through with a pregnancy. You cannot claim to value life if the death penalty is still in your toolbox. By the way, I want to show you one thing. I figured I would end on something of an amusing note in a very not amusing story. But there is a leader of an anti-abortion group who said exactly what I just said, which is that the death penalty is inconsistent with a pro-life worldview. This is what the anti-abortion person said. She was not a fan of this bill. And I want to show you what a Christian nationalist pastor said in response to it. Kristen Hawkins is the anti-abortion zealot who said the first thing. And here's what Dale Partridge, the pastor, said in response to that. This is exactly why women must not lead in the moral cultural war. Because, look at you acting like we can't murder people. Excuse me, we're Christian men here. This is what we are up against right now. They're not getting rid of the anti-woman criticism anytime soon. By the way, one thing I was surprised by, how many politicians didn't have any sort of public statements about this bill whatsoever. Tennessee Republicans did not condemn this amendment. Even if they didn't say they were going to vote for it, they didn't condemn it. And maybe there's some hope there that maybe this sort of Christian Sharia law will backfire, because most Americans, even the ones who oppose abortion, they understand that murdering women for having abortions seems kind of barbaric. And the more that Republicans pursue this sort of extreme agenda, the more they risk alienating a lot of their own base, including suburban women, younger voters, anyone who understands that medical decisions should not carry the risk of state-sponsored execution. None of this helps women. None of this makes pregnancy safer. But what do we learn from this? Tennessee Republicans, at least some of them, would rather execute women than trust them. Okay, I will stop there. What questions we have on this one? It is disturbing that this man even feels comfortable enough to propose this amendment. That means that there's enough people that voted for him that approved doing it. I wonder this myself. I wonder how many people in Tennessee or any state like it votes for Republicans because it's just what they're taught to do, and not because they necessarily support the agenda or the bills they propose. It's that most people don't follow what any of these people do at all about anything. And it's hard to believe. I mean, if you're watching this live stream or this video, you follow politics at least a little bit. Most people don't. They're just like, oh, my church says I should vote for the Republican, so I'll do it. And they have no clue what is going on here. It doesn't mean they're stupid. It means they got other stuff to think about. And that's why it's so important for people to talk to their loved ones, friends of theirs, and get through to them. Because again, you can't count on their pastor to say the right thing to them. These Republicans are going to keep getting away with this until more people get off their asses and vote them out of office. So I don't know that enough people voting for them support this stuff. I think they just don't know what's going on. Most of these guys know this stuff won't pass. They just know that by supporting it, that it'll get them votes by the so-called pro-lifers. Yeah, I mean, that is true. There's a lot of stuff that gets proposed because it's good for the base. It'll get them money. It'll get them headlines. It'll get them a lot of enthusiasm from their extremist voting base. And that's all they care about. I mean, we've seen that. That's why Lauren Boebert was in the news today. Not because she did anything useful, but because she wanted like a boost of affirmation or whatever from her crazies. Again, none of this matters unless you can get enough voters in their districts to care enough to vote them out. And at some point, sometimes if Trump is ruining everyone's life, you could see that sort of sea change happening. Maybe it'll happen in the midterms. But by and large, there's a lot of people who just pay no attention to any of this. Anti-choicers. Fetus couldn't possibly be a future atheist, queer person, or leftist, right? Honestly, if fetuses weren't blank slates for Christians to project themselves onto, they would be arguing for eugenics against undesirables like me. To your point, there is an argument to be made that one of the reasons you should have as many babies as possible if you are a Christian is the assumption that your babies are going to be carbon copies of you, ideologically too, which we know is not the case. I've shown you the survey results about religious switching. People leave Christianity, Catholicism more than any other religion. They don't grow up to be just like you. They have their own thoughts. And so it is funny for people to see, like, we got to have as many babies as possible. We can't allow abortions to happen because we're killing off potential Christians or whatever. It's like, no, that's not at all how it works. People are going to grow up and have their own beliefs and thoughts. And what's going to happen is they're just not going to want you in their life later on.